Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton has a nice intro riff which sounds like this. Now, I've heard several different versions where Eric Clapton plays live and studio releases, so he doesn't keep the actual phrasing exactly the same every time around. So we're going to start off by teaching you a very safe riff like that to get going. And then from there, then we can add the double bends. And we can start adding an extra little and little things like that as well onto the whole thing. But first of all, let's get the notes and then we can add the extras on. We're going to focus now primarily on your fretting hand. Finger 1 is presently at fret number 7 on the 3rd string, and you're starting off with that 7 where it says intro tune about 2/3 down your page on the PDF file that you've got. And from that 7, which should sound like that, we go to a 10. Now after the 10 is a 12. But you're not going to go to the 12. That's why it's in brackets. You're going to take the 10 and bend it to sound like the 12. There's the 10. Sounds the same. And that's the trick. So you're going to bend the 10 to sound like it. And then you bring it back down to the 10, followed by an 8. And you end on the 10 again. So super slow motion. And you'll notice a little bit of vibrato. You can see finger 3 is doing a bit of a shaking up and down there. I'll show you how to do that at the end of the phrase. But first of all, the intro riff one more time. And that's a bit more speed. The second bar is pretty much the same, excepting your last note is now 9. It ends there. So your second phrase is going to sound like this. And if I put phrases 1 and 2 together, you can appreciate the difference between the last note of the first and second bar. Here we go. We got the difference there. And then the third bar is going to sound something like this. Notice the pause. 7, 8, 12, 10. And then later we can do some fancy things like hear that sound? I'll show you how to do the break later and explain some other little things. First of all, let's get to see how to string bend accurately, or how to get a good string bending technique rather. Now we're doing the string bend on the 10, so we're getting finger 3 onto fret number 10 on the 2nd string. Notice fingers 1 and 2 are supporting it, so when I bend, I'm not bending with finger 3. This could happen, and that didn't sound cool. So to make it nice and strong, I use fingers 1, 2, and 3, so I'm bending with all 3 fingers. You can see I've got a lot of support. Those 2 fingers are supporting the ring finger for strength. And then I release, which is actually should rather called unbend or straighten the string, I guess, but they call it release because you're coming back to pitch. It doesn't mean you take the finger off. Okay, so your first bend and release onto the 8, and you end on the 10. Now with the vibrato there, I want you to first of all open your hand to get this technique. So your hand's looking like that, sort of quite straight. Got that? And we're going to sort of roll the side of the hand on the side of the guitar neck. Different angle there. You can see my fingers aren't doing this. That's not happening. It's just basically from the wrist. My movement is starting from here, from the wrist behind. It's that movement. When my finger's in place, it's doing this action. You can see not that. That's not happening. It's all from the wrist for the string bend and for a bit of vibrato. And a vibrato could almost be viewed as a very, very mini bend or micro bend, if you really wanted to call it some new music terminology. But the technique used for vibrato can be very similar as the string bend. There is a classical one which does that, but it doesn't work well, especially if you string bend it. Much more control with this movement that you can see happening slow motion there. Now, once you've got the basic riff, once you can do this, you can start adding some double bends like this. And you can see, instead of just going there, I did a double. It sounds quite cool. Now, if you've got some time, go watch Clapton do different live takes of Wonderful Tonight. Some are slower, some are faster. Some he adds a little bit extra notes inside there. But you can play with it like... And over there, check my pinky coming in. You can even later add little embellishments like that, but we're not going to go that deep into the song. I first want to teach the song. And we mentioned the last phrase, the timing, pause, and then I want to show you that technique. First of all, you have to be really close to your bridge. There's your saddles, and you're resting the strings, or the hand palm on the strings. If you don't, you get this. We don't want that. You want mute, 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 and you sort of drag the pick. And as you get to the target note, where my third finger is in the corner of your page, and then watch how my hand lifts to get that last note. So slow motion, muted, 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 and as I get there, my hand lifts up. And it gives a technique called a rake. So you're going to have... And then a little slide at the end there. You can see my finger sliding out. There's little things that you can add to the song to make it sound better. Now let's get to the chords. The chords are really, really cool. We're going to start with a new way to play G. It's basically F taken 2 frets up. You should know these chords by now, otherwise you wouldn't be getting the song. But when you change to the D/F sharp, you'll notice first of all with my new G, I've actually got my first finger on 3 strings, not 2. So when I move across to the D/F sharp, I go 1 fret back, a middle finger goes down to D with the F sharp bass. This third finger is actually playing that note F sharp. So it's like playing D with a pinky playing F sharp, but that's really impractical. It makes much more logical sense to go from G like this to change to D with the F sharp bass. Now on the picking side of it, we're going to use a pick for this because obviously you have to go from your intro into your... So you haven't got time to put your pick down and pick it up and put it down. So keep your pick, use a pick for this one, unless you're doing the lead with fingers obviously. Your picking pattern on the string numbers should something like this. 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. Those are the string numbers, not the fret numbers I'm calling out. You can see up close there. 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. And there's the change. You can hear the change in pitch there. So I'm going to zoom out. And now we can see how cool it works together. 2 and 3 and 4 and... That's a normal C. The only real change of the picking hand now is you're playing from the 5th string. 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. Normal D chord. And if you want to get fancy, drop the pinky and watch this. And let me just show you what I'm doing there with the D chord. It's actually quite cool. And it's quite easy too. You're starting with the D. And you can see the pinky kicking into fret number 3 on the 1st string. Then you take it off. All picking on the 1st string. Lose the middle finger to D sus2. And back to D. So with the pinky down, it's D sus4, D sus4, D, D sus2, D. Now if you put it in context, look how nice it sounds if you change that last D. So starting at the top, 3 and 4 and... You'll notice I fluffed a little bit there on the C because I was concentrating on sitting at quite a bad angle. So sorry about that, but I didn't stop. Very important lesson. If you make a mistake, especially if you're playing with a band or friends, don't stop. Play through the mistake. There's a fair chance nobody will even know. Okay. We can also get fancy. Now check this little slide I'm going to put in from the C. I'm going to get the picking hand back into picture again quickly. And watch the slide now from the D, F sharp to the C. You see that? And all I'm doing is I'm taking from the D, playing the fourth again, sliding it, pulling it off to open, and into the C. And it actually works really nicely onto the C chord. And then of course the D with the pinky story. And you home dry. Now the only real change in this song that's a little bit of a cool twist is when he goes to the third line he sings, and then she asks me, that part there, do I look alright? That part there. Okay, now all that's happening, you're going G to the D with the F sharp to E minor, and that tab is also on your page right at the bottom as well. You'll see the G, D, F sharp with the E minor. Let me show you a bit more up close what's happening with your fretting hand. Here we go. We're going to go from the D, and basically the chord now is only half a bar. And you want to make sure you hear these notes. That's part of the G, the F sharp from the D chord, to the E of the E minor. So you want to hear this. You want to hear that bass line, that bass sort of melody, if you want to call it that, inside the chords. You can hear it nicely. And before you finish the E minor and you lead back into the C, you have open, 2, and the tab is there. And that leads into the C. And that whole little sus4, sus2, you can add it when you want, if you want, how you want. I think it sounds cool. I'm going to take this verse through the whole way now. I'm going to zoom out. And you can play through with me for the verse. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Rundown. Then obviously the rhythm guitar would continue while the lead guitar goes into that part. Now quickly, I almost forgot to mention on the third line when he sings and then she asks me, he also does that open 5th, 2nd fret on the 5th, leading into the C chord. So basically, every time he leads to C in the third line, he has a little riff inside there. Those are the tools for Wonderful Tonight. You should have all the parts. You've got the tabs, you've got my WhatsApp details. If you'd like a copy of the tabs and you're not one of my students, please feel welcome to drop me a message or an email address in the comments, and I'll be happy to get it back to you. Otherwise, have an awesome day and enjoy some Clapton. Thank you.